Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and I'm excited to have with us facilitating yet another time, Tosin Mayowa. Today, she'll be speaking on the topic handling and working with expatriates excellently, and she'll be sharing with us effective strategies for managing employees on international assignments. I would like to read her profile just in case this is your first time of meeting her via this platform. Tosin is currently the Human Resource Director of the Smith Sisters Group Limited, and she's the lead consultant for Anok Consulting Limited. She is an insightful, compassionate, and effective talent manager with expertise in talent acquisition, performance management, employee experience, career counseling, and business development. She's also equipped with extensive background in psychology with specialization in industrial and organizational psychology. She's a people and culture strategist, training facilitator, career coach, and a mentor to many. She holds a senior professional in human resource international SPHRI certification, and she's an alumna of the University of Ibadan. She has a BS in psychology. She holds a master's degree from the University of Lagos and currently a PhD scholar at the University of Lagos. She is also a member of the Chara Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. In addition to this, she is a believer of the gospel and a mother of three amazing children. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand over control of this session to our facilitator for tonight, Tosin Mayowa. She will be speaking to us on the topic handling and working with expatriates excellently. Over to you, my sister.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone. It's such an amazing opportunity to be back here again to facilitate another webinar of HR mentorship. I want to, first of all, appreciate the HR mentorship platform, especially in person of Dr. Oluyemi Adeosun, who is the host. Thank you once again for bringing me back here. So tonight we are going to be talking on handling and working with expatriates excellently. And then we'll be looking at effective strategies for managing employees on international assignments. Thank you very much. The overview of this webinar goes thus. First of all, we'll be looking at understanding expatriation in a global workforce. We'll be looking at strategic selection and preparation of expatriates, supporting expatriates during international assignments, repatriation and retention of international talents, best practices and common pitfalls in expatriate management. So who are the beneficiaries of this webinar? Although this webinar is always organized by the HR mentorship platform, but there are other people who can benefit. First of all, the HR practitioners are the primary beneficiary of this webinar, because this webinar is going to be offering structured practical frameworks for planning, implementing, and evaluating expatriate assignments. Excuse me. Organization and business leaders, practically business owners. This webinar is going to be providing clear guidelines for maximizing the value of expatriate, thereby reducing the risk for expatriate failure. Policymakers, of course, this webinar is going to highlight the gaps in regulatory implementation and compliance, and then, of course, expose policymakers to these gaps, and it will also give them informed decision on how to, update or modify the existing policies on expatriate regulation. Then we have the academics and students. Of course, every student in one way or the other will benefit from this webinar. Let's proceed. We cannot agree with me that there has been increased cross-border movement of human capital, especially with the jackpot syndrome that we have in Nigeria. So this has led to a large, significant rise in expatriate assignments in emerging markets such as Nigeria. So organizations in sectors like hospitality, manufacturing and construction, even oil and gas, frequently rely on expatriates to transfer knowledge, implement global standards, and drive strategic major projects. But however, expatriate assignments are often characterized by complexity with recurring challenges related to cultural misalignments, weak integration with local staff, and inadequate repatriation and knowledge transfer process. Understanding expatriation in a global workforce. First of all, we are going to be defining the terms that we'll be talking about. We talked about the topic of this webinar is working with expatriates excellently. Some people do not even know what expatriates mean. We even have one or two, in fact, HR professionals that when you mention expatriate, of course, most of them might not have worked with expatriates or handled expatriates before. And when you mention it, it sounds like a new term to them. So first of all, we are going to be defining the term expatriate. Who is an expatriate? An expatriate is a person who is living and working in a country that is not their home country. It could be their country of birth or country of citizenship. So anybody who is an expatriate. So if you have a Nigerian going to work in Kenya for a period of time, the person is an expatriate in Kenya. Or if we have an American coming to work in Nigeria, that person is an expatriate in Nigeria. So basically, an expatriate is an employee who is working outside of their own country or a country that is not the country they live in or where they grow up in. So basically, that's just the simple definition of an expatriate. So when you hear anybody being referred to as an expatriate, I'm sure we have the basic understanding of who an expatriate is. What's the role of an expatriate? Expatriate acts as cultural bridge, facilitating understanding between different cultural environments in the workplace while bringing in international best practice to the organization. So because an expatriate is somebody coming in from a different country, most of the time any other country abroad, they are coming in. So they are bringing in new perspective. They are bringing in new cultures. And then they are able to, integrate this perspective and culture into the current work environment. Basically, that's the role of the expatriate. Of course, knowledge transfer is the basic and major reason why we are bringing in expatriates. Most of the time, we'll still get into that. Most of the time, we bring in expatriates because possibly sometimes we do not have local talents that can do some of this, that can occupy some of these technical roles. So basically, that's why we bring in expatriates. So part of their role is to transfer knowledge, act as cultural bridges, facilitate understanding between different cultures, and then also bring in international best practices. Common reasons for international assignment, just like I've just said. What are the common reasons why people bring in expatriates, or what are the reasons why people send out their talent on international assignments? Number one is leadership development. Like I've said, sometimes we might not have local talent with a specific skill to, implement a particular project. So most of the time we'll bring in this expatriate to also develop and build our own local talent. So that's where leadership development comes in. International assignment helps develop global leadership skills through cross-cultural experiences and responsibilities. Another reasons why we bring in expatriates or why we send our talent on international assignments is for knowledge transfer, like I said. Assignment facilitates sharing expertise, and best practices between the home country and then the home office and then the office abroad. So basically, we have someone who has a particular knowledge or a particular skill, and then we are bringing in that person to transfer such knowledge to the local talents. Another reason why people bring in expatriates is for business expansion. For local businesses who want to expand abroad, or for organizations who are multinationals and have subsidiaries in different countries, it is just important that they send people to those locations or to those subsidiaries to, share their expertise, share knowledge with them, and to promote business expansion, basically. The last one is problem resolutions. Sometimes we might have crises in subsidiaries that are outside of the country. So it is important that we send some of our, talents that can provide resolutions to most of this problem to those places. What are the key challenges faced by expatriates? So we've talked about who an expatriate is, why we send people on international assignments, or why we bring in expatriates. So now we're talking about the key challenges that these expatriates faced whenever they go on international assignments. The first one is cultural adjustment difficulties. Expatriates may struggle to adapt to new cultural norms and practices, affecting their comfort and effectiveness abroad. Of course, when you move to a new environment, even as a local talent, when we move to a new environment, a new workplace, or you just relocated from one state to another, it is just normal that you experience some basic cultural adjustment, especially when you are not used to the culture that is being practiced in that environment. So most expatriates face these challenges. Another one is family relocation stress. Of course, if an expatriate is, somebody who is maybe married, have children, sometimes there might be family challenges that these expatriates face. Moving families significant, most families significantly face some stress. Some expatriates, even while engaging them, they will tell you that, oh, if they have to come into your country or into your organization, they will have to relocate their entire family. Some of them they don't mind leaving their family behind, coming in to work for a short period of time and then going back. Either way, they still experience a form of family relocation stress, such as change in environment, schooling for the children, for those who have children, or connecting with a new social network. All these have a way of impacting in the overall well-being of the expatriates. Communication barriers. Of course, language differences and communication style create misunderstanding that hinders professional and personal relationship. I found myself working with some expatriates that could not even, communicate in English at all. So we all had to rely on AI to interpret whatever it is we say. When I speak in English, they record it on their phone, and then the AI interprets it to them in their language, and then they also speak into their phone, send it to me, and then I read. So most of the time, we find ourselves having some misunderstanding, which is just as a result of miscommunication. So communication barriers is also a major challenge faced by expatriates, especially those who might not be able to communicate fluently in English. Experience of isolation. Of course, this is also basic to anybody that is going to a new environment. You do not have new friends where you are going to. You are probably the only one that understands the language that you speak. There is bound to be the person is just bound to experience some form of isolation. So expatriates often face loneliness and isolation from familiar support system, which affects their mental health as well. So we are going to be looking at strategic selection and preparation of expatriates. So having talked about who an expatriate is, why we need expatriates, and the key challenges they face, it is just important that we talk about preparation of this expatriate and strategic selection. Of course, expatriates are also employees. So what are the factors that we look out for when selecting or when recruiting an expatriate? Don't forget that I mentioned that an expatriate is anybody that is working outside of their home country. So it could be that a local organization here in Nigeria is sending some of their talent abroad, or that we are recruiting somebody from another country into the country. Either way, they are both expatriates as far as they are working outside of their home country. So we are going to be identifying and assessing. We are going to be looking at how to identify and assess suitable candidates for international assignments. The first one is looking at the professional skill of that person. Of course, most of the reason why we bring in expatriates again is because we need somebody who has a specific skill or talent that we need to, implement a particular project. So if this is the reason why we are bringing in an expatriate, it is important that we look out for the relevant skills or knowledge that this person has before selecting such person for an international assignment. Another thing we'll be looking at for is cultural adaptability. How easy is it for this person to adapt to the new culture where he or she is being, assigned to? Measuring cultural sensitivity and adaptability helps predict success in diverse international settings. Of course, we know that we have several assessment processes for selecting candidates. So we can also include cultural sensitivity assessments as part of, the assessments that we adopt for selection of an employee or a person for an international assignment. Family readiness. We talked about some family challenges that expatriates faced when going for international assignments. So it is important that we consider the readiness of such person's family. How prepared are they to support the smooth transition of such person, if it is a long-term or a short-term, assignment. Of course, sometimes we have had expatriates who will come in and then say that, oh, for the first 6 months, they will come into work, adapt to the culture, check the environment and be sure that it is a place they want to be before bringing in their family, maybe 6 months after, or a few months or a year after. So family readiness is also important that we look out for this when selecting an expatriate for an international assignment. Motivation for the assignment. This is also very important because it is crucial for us to know what is driving this person. Sometimes you can even identify a few talents for this assignment and then you can, throw it open for them to, apply or show interest. So it is important that you actually look out for factors that are motivating this person. Why is this person open to going on this assignment? There are different level of needs that drive people. So it is important for us to know the particular need of this person or why this person is interested for this role. Of course, when we are recruiting, we consider this as what is motivating you, what are your long-term goals, what are your short-term goals, what is actually motivating you, or what is the driving force for you to be interested in this role. So it is important that we look at for the motivation of that particular employee before sending such on an assignment. Most of the time, why is it important to look out for motivation is also because so that we can be sure that this person is also aligning with our goal for sending him or her on that assignment. So it is important. So we've talked about the challenges that expatriates face, which is also cultural adjustments and some other challenges, family challenges. So because of these challenges, it is important that we organize or set up what we call pre-departure training programs for expatriates. Why do we need this pre-departure training program? It's just to, orientate this expatriate or the talent that we are sending out for international assignments about the host country where he or she is going to, or the host organization where the person is going to. Host country information. This training should also provide practical knowledge about the host country, weather, geography, custom, and lifestyle of the host country. It's also important that we provide cultural norms and etiquettes. Helping the person to understand the local culture and norms and business etiquette is essential for smooth integration and professional success, especially for some expatriates that are, moving to other countries. Maybe a country like Nigeria, for example, we have our own way of doing things. We have our culture. We have a process of doing things. So it is important that we prepare this person to understand the etiquette and culture. Coping strategies. It is also important that we furnish whoever we are sending on international assignments or whoever we are bringing into the country with informations, coping mechanisms, coping strategies that can help the person to familiarize themselves and adapt, emotionally and socially to the new environment. Another form of training orientation that we need to provide is cultural awareness and adaptation strategy. So after orientating this person about the culture, the weather, the etiquette and all that, it is also important that we let them understand the culture. Of course, the purpose of this is to foster openness in the mind of these expatriates to be open to accepting new ideas, new norms, accepting the people, and then it will also help the person by reducing culture shock. For example, a place like Nigeria, for somebody who is coming from maybe some part of Europe where things are done, according to, how they should be done. And then the person comes to Nigeria and people are shouting and I just don't want to be stereotypical, but when you find yourself in an environment where somebody is just shouting loudly, making some noise or pressing horn uncontrollably and all that, you will not be too shocked when you see people behaving in a particular way that you are not used to. So it is important that we provide cultural awareness and furnish them with adaptation strategies. Some of these strategies can be communication tools. Effective communication tools can help bridge cultural gaps by enabling expatriates to interact smoothly. So sometimes what I do is that once we have an expatriate coming into the country, we had, after the acceptance of offer and all, we had them into our various WhatsApp group, had them into our Slack and office chat group so that they can start familiarizing themselves. Sometimes we even go as far as assigning a body. We adopt a body system, assigning a body to this person. So most of the time, even before the expatriate come into the country, or into the organization, the person is already, interacting with everybody, already knows the name of two or three people or in the team. The person already, sometimes when they come into the organization, some people are wondering, okay, there was a time, let me just give a quick example. There was a time that I onboarded an expatriate and I was not on ground when the person resumed. So a week or 2 weeks after, I came back and the person saw me and then we started talking as if we've known each other. And people were like, have you met this person? Why are you, so free with this person? Just because I've been interacting with this person months before he even arrived into the country. So it is important that we, foster this openness and then adopt some effective communication tools that can help bridge gaps between this talent that we are sending out on international assignments with the team on ground. So we are going to be looking at some theoretical frameworks. What do I mean by this? Some theories that help support that best supports expatriate management. We'll be looking at first cultural intelligence in expatriate management. Of course, we all know what cultural intelligence means. I'll just summarize it and just help us understand why it is important to expatriate management. Cultural intelligence reflects an individual's capacity to function effectively in culturally diverse setting. So it basically means that how effective are you able to function when you find yourself in a culturally diverse environment? What do I mean by this? In an environment where the culture is totally different from what you are used to, and then there are several of these cultures. So your adaptability, how easy it is for that person, or how seamless it is for the person to quickly adapt, shows that the person has a high level of cultural intelligence. And research shows that individuals with high level of cultural intelligence adapt more effectively to new cultural environments. They experience less severe culture shock and perform better in cross-cultural roles. Cultural intelligence also affects how an expatriate interprets unfamiliar behavior, manage cultural differences, and build relationships with host country nationals. So what this means is that for somebody who has a high level of cultural intelligence, sometimes you might not even have to prepare such person. Probably there is you have limited time to onboard and then book flights and all that. So if this person has a high level of cultural intelligence, it will just be easy for the person to adapt and flow with the nationals of that new environment. Another theory we'll be looking at is emotional intelligence. Of course, we all know what emotional intelligence is, but I will also explain how it links to expatriate management. Emotional intelligence refers to the ability of a person to recognize, understand, and manage emotions in oneself and others. So it includes competency in areas such as self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skills. So emotional intelligence has to do with you being able to recognize and understand people's emotion and your own emotion at the same time. How you are able to manage this is very important. So in the context of expatriate management, emotional intelligence is crucial for managing stress. When you are dealing with ambiguity, unfamiliar environment, responding to conflict, and building trust across cultural boundaries. So what's the theoretical justification of, adopting cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence? Research has shown that many organizations manage expatriates in a fragmented way, focusing more on visa processing than cultural integration. Of course, if you want to be honest with ourselves, when I even started working with expatriates, all I had to do then was just to book flights, process their setback, process visa, and then, just book flights, prepare their accommodation, provide logistics and all that. That's the only thing I knew about expatriate. But as time goes on, as I, acquire more experience on the job, I started, delving into more intensive aspects of expat management that are really, really very important. Even, it is one thing for you to process visa, provide logistics and everything. It is another thing for you to prepare this person coming in, furnish the person with enough information, orientation, trainings, and awareness about the host countries the team is going to meet with. Already, making them feel, as part of the team already before they even, land in that home country. So it is important that we consider this. Research has also shown that workplace where cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence are high, and then there are efforts to understand cultural background, empathy with adjustment challenges, and manage tension. So this means that the relationship between the expatriates and the local staff are more positive. So for organizations where they value cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence as part of what to look out for when selecting an expatriate, and organizations that have furnished and orientate this expatriate well, we see that there's a positive relationship between these expatriates and local staff, and they relate positively well, they cooperate, they support each other, and then there's less conflict between the expats and the local talent. So it is important that we consider this theoretical background when we are selecting expatriates and in managing our expatriates. So we'll look at how we can support expatriates when they are on international assignments. Remember, I said that an expatriate is an employee that is sent out of the country for an international assignment, or an employee that you are bringing into the country from their home country. So whether they are going out on international assignment or they are coming into the country, it is important that we still provide support to these people while they are on their assignments. So how do we support them? Providing ongoing communication and support channels. Number one, you do regular check-in, frequent check-in to ensure that this expatriate receive timely guidance and support to overcome challenges. Most of the time, what we are used to doing is onboarding. Once we finish onboarding an expatriate, we'll move back or we focus on something else, and we assume that the person is fine and okay and can, continue to move on like that. It is important that we do regular check-in. Another thing that we can do to provide support is by providing mentorship. Like I said earlier, that it is also important that we can adopt a body system by providing a body in the organization as a support system to this expatriate. Sometimes it could be because maybe the expatriate cannot communicate in the local language. So it's important that you assign somebody who can communicate fluently locally and can also, communicate to the expatriate. So mentoring programs provide personalized advice and helps expatriates feel supported and connected. Another thing is HR support access. As HR professionals, always be accessible. Make yourself accessible to everybody in the organization, expatriate or not. So access to human resource ensures expatriates have resources for workplace and personal concerns. Another way to support, expatriates, hold on. Another way to support is by providing fair compensation packages. It is important that we provide equitable pay and benefits to motivate these expatriates and then support organizational goals. Adhering to labor laws. When we adhere to labor laws and regulations concerning expatriate management, we are also helping and supporting them. So sometimes most of us are used to using immigration agents, or this person is an agent, he can process green card, he can process that. Most of the time they don't do their due diligence in, acquiring most of these documents for the expatriate. So when we don't comply to legal regulations, we are not supporting them. Sometimes they might even be picked up by law enforcement agency, and this can also be like a culture shock for this expatriate, and it can end up affecting their performance. Of course, it will. So it is important that we comply to labor regulations and immigration regulations when processing, papers and documentation for our expatriates. Allowance and benefits, of course, as part of their compensation and benefits, compensation package, it is important that we make room for some allowances that help them address some unique needs, possibly for daily groceries, fueling of their vehicles and the likes. So these are ways to provide support to expatriates. How else can we facilitate expatriate integration and well-being? Encouraging them to join social groups. Of course, I'm aware that some expatriates have some, social organizations. For example, we have Association of Indian Expatriates, we have Lebanese, we have Chinese, like that. So it is important. If you are aware of any of these group or associations, you can easily encourage them to join, because these are people from the same culture as the expatriates, and they speak the same language. They probably understand what that person is going through at that time. So it is important if we can help to help them facilitate integration into social support groups. Of course, addressing family needs. We can also come in as an organization or as HR professional to help address family needs of these expatriates. Somebody shared an experience at a conference I attended in Abuja early this year. How he was sent out of the country. He's a Nigerian. How he was sent out of the country for an international assignment while his wife was heavily pregnant. So he narrated how the HR team and everybody in the workplace were able to provide enough support for his wife, up to booking ultrasound appointments and connecting, the expatriates to hear the sound of the foetus while they were conducting the ultrasound, or doing a live video when the wife had to put to bed and the guy had to watch from abroad and all that. So these are very good ways, of supporting expatriates, supporting their families when they are out on international assignments. Meeting family needs enhance overall satisfaction and stability during expatriate assignments. I've had an expatriate who says that, oh, I'm sorry, if you want me to join your organization, I have to come with my family so that I can focus and concentrate on work. If such person is not properly supported, in moving his family and all that, it will affect their performance on the job. And at the end of the day, you are losing money, because if the person is unable to, provide solution to the problem while you've engaged him or her, or is unable to, meet your need as an organization, you're also costing, you're also making a loss. So it is important that even if we have to spend so much to bring in an expatriate or to send an expatriate abroad, it is just important that we provide this support just for our own, benefit as an organization. Mental health focus. You can provide as a form of employee appreciation program. Some organizations have mental health practitioners, even apart from the HR person. Some organizations have industrial and organization psychologists in their organization that provides mental health services and wellness program for employees. The expatriate can also benefit from this. Expatriate life cycle. The expatriate life cycle includes several stages, each with distinct HR responsibilities and challenges. Of course, when we talk about employee life cycle, we are talking about from recruitment to exit. So the same thing applies to expatriates. We'll be talking about each stage in details, and we'll be highlighting the consequences for neglecting any part of this life cycle. Number one is recruitment and selection. Like I said at the beginning of this webinar, that it is important for us to identify the skills that we are looking for in candidates, with the requisite technical skills, like I said, leadership capabilities, adaptability, family readiness for international assignment. Because again, one of the reasons why you are bringing in an expert, like I've said several times, is because there is a need. They have a particular skill that you need them for. So you should also be able to look out for these skills during your assessment and selection process to be sure that these candidates actually can meet your need at this point in time before, making your final selection. Pre-departure preparation, like I've said, providing cultural training, language support, role clarification, realistic previews of the host country's context before, this person embark on the journey. Immigration and work permit arrangement. Like I've said, it is important that we comply to labor regulation and immigration regulations in the processing of visas, work permits, and expatriate quota approvals in compliance with the host country regulation. So every country have their own regulations for processing visas, work permits, and expatriate quota. It is important that you learn you learn and abide by the laws and regulations of these countries, just so that your expat does not eventually get picked up every now and then you have to go bail him out and all that. So it is important. Also, for the purpose of employer branding, it's important that you go through the proper process. The onboarding and early adjustment stage. Like I've said, facilitating comprehensive organizational induction in the host country is also important. Even after you have done a pre-departure training, you have orientated the person about the host country, where he's going to, the culture, the weather, and every other thing. It is also important that you also do your own onboarding, welcoming the person into the organization, familiarizing the person with the workstation, work environment. If you have several outlets and subsidiaries, it's just important that you take this person around, introduce them to everybody in the organization. So do your own internal onboarding again. Of course, we also understand that onboarding is still a form of orientation again, helping them to understand the host country, the work environment, the nature of the job, and all that. So after this, we will now move to performance management. Of course, it's still part of the employee life cycle. After providing all this training, orientation, you've fully onboarded the person, you've assigned a body and all that, it is important to manage their performance. Why? Because you've brought them in for a reason, and you need to evaluate to be sure that they are in alignment with your goal and objective for bringing them in. It is just basic. Integration and collaboration, ensuring that expatriates work effectively with host country nationals through communication, team building, and conflict resolution. Like I said earlier, that I had a misunderstanding with some experts I've worked with in the past, just as a result of miscommunication. And the reason is because the AI cannot effectively interpret whatever is being said, unlike you both speaking in English and understanding each other. So it is important that we ensure that we provide good communication network. Possibly if you can hire an interpreter, most organizations do that. It is just good for you to hire an interpreter who will interpret whatever is being communicated, effectively to both parties. It is important that you do proper integration, follow-ups to ensure that the expatriate is able to work effectively with host country nationals and that there are no rifts. And even when there are rifts, it is important that you provide prompt grievance handling mechanism or conflict resolution mechanism as quick as possible. Repatriation and post-assignment career management. So this is the last chain of the expatriate life cycle, just like employee exit. Repatriation means when the person is returning back to their own country, what are the post-assignment supports that we can also provide? Planning the expatriate return, leveraging on newly acquired skills. Of course, you know that if you travel out of your home country to another place, whether to even impact knowledge, you are also learning new skills. You are learning new languages, you are learning new food, you are learning new ways of doing things and all that. So it is important that we ensure appropriate career progression for this person, even upon their return. We'll be looking at the legal and regulatory bodies for expatriate management in Nigeria. So we have several bodies that control that control different aspects of expatriate management, talking about regulations, document processing, and all. We have the Nigeria Immigration Service. What they do is that they control the entry, stay, and exit of expatriates. They also issue visas and SEPAC. SEPAC is the green card that we see the expatriate carry around. So the Nigeria Immigration is the one in charge of this. Federal Ministry of Interior. You know that the Nigeria Immigration Service is under the Federal Ministry of Interior. So the Federal Ministry of Interior approves the business permit for the organization and their expatriate quota. So even before you bring in an expatriate, you're supposed to apply for expatriate quota. You're supposed to get approval for your business permit before you can even start processing or bringing in expatriates. We also have the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Of course, like we know, they conduct regular labor inspection, they handle dispute resolution and policy on employment. So they come in to check if we are in compliance with labor regulations and immigration regulations for your expatriates. Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, they monitor expatriate usage in oil and gas. And we have FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Basically, they just monitor tax compliance for local talents and for expatriates. So we have entry and work authorization for expatriates in Nigeria. We have processes to this. So like I've said earlier, you need your business permit. Your business permit is required for companies with foreign participation. So whether you are bringing in an expatriate or you have a subsidiary abroad, you get your business permit. Your business permit also allow you to operate legally in Nigeria. So for multinationals who are coming in to establish in Nigeria, they need a business permit. for them to be able to operate legally in Nigeria. And this business permit is always issued by the Ministry of Interior. Like I said, immigration is still under the Ministry of Interior. So we have the expatriate quota. This expatriate quota is also issued by the Ministry of Interior. It is a government approval specifying the number of expatriates a company can employ and the positions they can occupy. So when you're processing your business permit, there are company profile that they require. Which sector are you working in? Man, is it manufacturing? Is it hospitality? Is it construction? So it is the immigration service that decide on the number of expatriates that you need to have and what role they will occupy. Of course, you submit your application as well to say that, oh, we need, if it's construction, you can say that you need a project manager, you need a mechanical engineer, you need an electrical engineer, and you need them to be expatriates. You submit, then you get approval. You understand? So this process is just basically to ensure that expatriates only fill positions where skills are scarce locally to promote transfer of skill to Nigerians. So for Nigerians, because that's the only one I can speak for, because this is where I practice. So basically, before you can even be issued an expatriate quota, you must be able to prove that you do not have local talent that can fill that role or that have the technical skill you're actually looking for. So once you're able to prove that you don't have local talent that can do that, that is when you can apply for expatriate quota and then you get it. Entry and work authorization for expatriates in Nigeria, so this is a continuation. We also have permanent until reviewed. We have the PUR. It is an expatriate position that is permanent in the company's quota, usually for very senior and critical roles. They might be the MD or the CEO. Maybe they want to extend their business to Nigeria. So these ones are top managerial positions. It could be technical director, general manager, or the MD. So it is usually permanent in your quota. It does not expire like the normal temporary expatriate quota slots. But government can review it at any time, depending on the following. Number one, if the company abused the position, if a suitable qualified Nigeria is now available for the role, or the policy changes, maybe government policy changes, you understand. So these are the three reasons why they can review your PUR. We have the temporary quota. The temporary quota is time bound, and it could be for a period of 3 to 6 months. It is basically for technical roles, especially maybe for projects. The condition of this is that the expert position must have at least one Nigerian understudy, and the company must submit periodic returns showing compliance and progress of understudies. So what this means is that when this person is coming in, the person needs to have somebody that will understudy them. So because this quota is very limited, it could be for 6 months, 3 months, or a year. So when this person comes in, there needs to be somebody that will understudy this person so that when he's done and returning, this person can, take up the role. We have visas and residence permits. We have the STR visa, which is subject to regularization. It is a long-term visa work issued in Nigeria embassies. It's issued at Nigerian embassies, granted based on an employment offer and expatriate quota approval. So depending on the expatriate quota approval that you have, that will determine your STR visa approval. Expatriates must regularize their status in Nigeria to obtain residence or work permit. So now your STR is not your work permit. Your STR, gives you the opportunity to come into Nigeria to stay once you have a proof of offer of employment. But your SEPAC is your resident permit. That's the green card that we see expatriates carry around. Your SEPAC is your resident and work permit that allows you to work. And it is usually for a period of 1 year. I don't think it's 2 years, but what I've worked with is 1 year. Then it is subject to renewal every year. So encourage your expatriate to carry their green card, which is a SEPAC, along with them everywhere they go as a proof of legal residence and permission to work. I've had an experience of an expat who was not carrying his green card at the time that the immigration people approached him, and then, Of course, it got picked up. We were contacted and then we provided the card and then it was released. So it's important that you encourage your expats. If you have them in your organization, ensure that they carry their green card along with them. If they don't carry it, they should have the soft copy on their phones all the time, both front and back copy. They should just have it on their phone, then they can show the immigration officer whenever they are approached. We also have the temporary work permit, which is a short-term visa for expats coming in for a very brief assignment. It's usually 3 months, maybe for an installation or for a repair work or for a short training or consultation. This one, you can't use it for residency and you cannot use it for setback. It is just temporary work permits. Upon expiration, you are back to your home country. So having talked about the challenges faced, the regulations, the processes, we're going to look at repatriation and retention of international talent. What do we mean by repatriation? When repatriation has to do with when someone returns to their home country after living and working abroad. So we have an employee whom we have sent on an international assignment for like maybe a year and a half, and this person is returning back. That's repatriation. So we look at how to plan a smooth repatriation process for an employee or for a talent who has been sent on international assignment. Career discussion. It is important you engage early in career discussion to align repatriation goals with professional opportunities. So, for example, you sent an employee abroad for a year or two and the person is coming back. They might have their own personal goals. They might have their own personal career projections. So it is important that you start this conversation early so that you can be in alignment with their whole. Of course, you know that people changes when they go to a new environment. Their goal might have changed, their expectations might have changed, their aspiration might have changed. So it is important that you engage this discussion early. Some of them, we are bringing them back just so that they can attain a higher position, maybe as a result of promotion. So it is important that we engage in, early career discussion. Reintegration support. Again, it is also important that we provide reintegration support to ease the culture and social transition after returning home. Leaving your home country for a year or 2 or 3, 4 or 5, your friends have new friends, you understand? For somebody who maybe left their spouse behind, a lot of things might have changed. For people who have children that have now grown, so it is important that we provide some cultural and social transition after returning home. Again, we can still have the employee appreciation program, like the mental health support for them. Managing expectations. Again, like I said, people's expectation changes over time. So it is important that we provide support in managing their expectation to reduce stress and ensure a smooth repatriation experience for the expatriates. Addressing reverse culture shock. So now, we talked about culture shock when you are going to a new environment. So now we are talking about reverse culture shock and reintegration. Because you've left your home country for quite a number of years. Now you are returning. A lot of things have changed. There are a lot of, even some cultural values have, civilization have influenced some of your cultural values and all that. So it is important that we help provide support to address the cultural shock. Reverse culture shock occurs when returning expatriates struggle to readjust to their home culture after living abroad. And most of the time, from experience, you will see that once of course, if you are very familiar with, expatriate recruitment and management, you will see that most of these expatriates, when they go back to their country, after a few months or a year, they are coming back to Nigeria. That's when you are recruiting for an expert. When you are recruiting an expatriate, you look at their resume and you see that they've worked in Nigeria in 2015. They went back in 2019. They came back to work in Nigeria again in 2021. You get. So most of the time, just because they are unable to properly adjust back to their own culture, most of them just keep reapplying and keep coming back to work in other organizations. Personal readjustment. This support is also important. Emotional support, social adaptation, help expatriates manage personal. So for organizations that are multinationals, it is easy for them, to provide this reintegration support for them because, okay, we have a branch in Nigeria, we have a branch in Kenya, we have a branch in South Africa. We sent you from Nigeria to Kenya for 2 years, we are bringing you back. So it's easy for us to provide this support when you're coming back to Nigeria because you still have the HR team on ground, you have your maybe mental health and wellness practitioner on ground, all these people are there. Unlike those that are just going back to their country where the organization does not even have a branch or a subsidiary to provide, continuous support. So it is usually easier for multinationals to, provide these adjustments. Professional reintegration, like I've said, facilitating workplace reintegration enables expatriates to resume their career roles effectively after, coming back from an assignment. Leveraging expatriate experience for organizational growth. Now, we are engaging an expatriate because we need their technical skills, or we need a knowledge. They have a talent that we need. So now it is important that when we are bringing them in, of course, we all know and we cannot agree that we spend a lot in bringing expatriates in or in sending somebody on an international assignment. So when we do this, it is important that we leverage on their experience for the for the growth of the organization. It is just important. Encourage knowledge sharing. So promoting the exchange of expatriate insights fosters a culture of continuous learning and improvement. If you are bringing in, for example, an engineer, and you have your team of engineers on ground, it is important that you ensure transfer of knowledge from the expatriate to the local talent that you have. It is just important so that, when the expatriate maybe goes on vacation or eventually returns to their home country, your team on ground can, continue to manage the situation, or continue from where they stop and continue to move the company forward. By doing this, you are driving innovation because expatriate experience contributes to innovative solutions by providing new perspective to ideas. And by doing that, it helps you, it helps the organization to, adopt, global business strategies. Like I said, part of what the expatriates brings is that they bring international best practice. So that means they also improve how your processes and ways of doing things. Utilizing expatriate insights strengthens global strategies and enhance competitive advantage. So, for example, let's say you are a construction company and you have 2 or 3 experts in your organization driving innovation, promoting leadership development and all that. You have a competitive advantage over your competitors who might not, have expatriates that are bringing you new insights and new skills. What are the best practices and common pitfalls in expatriate management? Of course, as good and sweet and interesting as expatriate management sounds, there are still some gaps, there are still some pitfalls. So we are going to be looking at the best practices and the common pitfalls in expatriate management. Some of the lessons that we have learned as pitfalls in expatriate management is: number one, inadequate preparation. Lack of thorough preparation often leads to unforeseen challenges during assignments, risking overall success. Like we have mentioned, there are some preparation that we are supposed to make when we are selecting our expatriates, when they are coming in, when we are processing their documentation, and even support that we provide to integrate them into the culture. So when we don't have enough time to prepare, or when we do not even prepare this expatriate properly, it leads to, unforeseen challenges, several challenges, as even including poor performance of such expatriates, even if the person is a good talent. But if it's not properly prepared, the person is not properly onboarded and all, there will be poor performance. Poor communication. Ineffective communication causes misunderstanding and delays, undermining team collaboration and goal. It is important. See, even before your expatriate lands into the country, upon acceptance of offers, it is important that we foster communication. We introduce them to the team, create groups, let them be part of the group, start up conversations, let them start communicating with people so that they can feel feel included and feel as part of a member of the team. They even feel like, oh, they can work well with this person, they can collaborate well with this person. From my own experience working with expatriates, I don't think I've ever had any expatriate come in and then we are finding it difficult to understand each other or communicate or get along well. Because even before arrival, we already become buddies. I'm checking on you on a daily basis as you are going to the airport, as you are getting on your flight, as you are preparing your family. Oh, when do you plan to travel? Next week, next month? Okay, how are you doing today? I hope you are good. I'm just checking in on you. Your flight has been booked. Just keep the communication going. And then when the person eventually arrives, they just flow with you seamlessly. So poor communication is one of the lessons or pitfalls that we have identified over time. Lack of repatriation planning. It is important that you plan the repatriation process for your expatriates, whether they are going back to their country or you are withdrawing them back to the home country. It is important that we plan their return process. Planning can disrupt, lack of planning can disrupt transition process and reduce assignment satisfaction. So, for example, for someone, let's say, for example, you send a talent out, or on an international assignment, let's say for 2 years, and then in the process, the person's wife divorced him or her, and then he's back into the country as a divorced person, and there's no one to, to talk to, or to, no companionship. So it is important that you provide some level of support for the expatriate when they are returning back. You might not be able to provide maybe 100% support, but at least they should have something to fall back on, something, conducting even exit interview is also important. Oh, now that you're going to your country, what will you be doing? What are the plans? Where do it is important when you put all these processes in place. It reduces assignments, it increases assignment satisfaction. Because if you are sending somebody else, especially we Nigerians, we spiritualize a lot of things. You will hear your employees start saying, I'm not going to that country. Lagbaja went there and came back, and you see what happened to his family, and you want me to go back there again. Or somebody traveled and came back and they didn't support him, and you want me to go. So it is important that we plan repatriation support for returning employees, so that it will even, serve as a morale boost for other people that you are sending on assignment next time. Building a sustainable expatriate management framework. How do we do that? By developing a formal expatriate management policy. Most organizations don't have expatriate management policy. We just do a fire brigade approach that, oh, I need an expatriate, let me process him, let him come into the country, him or her, and then let them start working. When you have a proper expatriate management policy, you have a process to follow. It makes your work easier. In fact, this policy goes as far as outlining, expatriate documentation processes, expatriate quota, and how you go through your expatriate selection processes. What are the things to look out for? Once you have a policy, it is just easy. All you just need to do is implement. You understand? Instead of you, trying to reach out to people, or, also for continuity. As HR professional, it is important. If we don't have this policy in our organization and we engage expatriates, let's adopt it. Let's implement one, so that, anybody coming behind you or any other person who occupies that position in the future can praise you or thank you or pray for you that, oh, thank God this policy is in place. Even if the person does not have experience in managing expatriates, as far as there's a policy in place, there's a process in place, that person has a template to follow. Excuse me. So such person has a template to follow, and it is easy for them to just hit the ground running. So it is important that we have an expatriate management policy. Pardon me, please. Okay. It is also important that we strengthen our internal compliance capacity. Like I have said, don't depend on immigration agents. Follow proper process. Visit the immigration office yourself. Process the documentation of these people yourself. Yes, it is stressful. It can be tiring, honestly. It can be frustrating, but it is important that even if you are working with an agent or an immigration consultant, it is important that you put your eye, monitor the process, and ensure that the person is compliant with the law. For those who want to, outsource it, or you want to engage an immigration consultant, not agents. Don't engage agents to avoid story that touch. You understand? HR department should build internal expertise in Nigerian immigration and labor regulation, including expatriate quota requirements, rather than rely solely on external agents. You see, that's just what I've explained. Invest in cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence development. HR professionals, line managers, expatriates should receive structured training in emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence, covering topics such as cultural norm, communication style, conflict management, self-awareness, leadership, and management. Um, okay. Other processes for building a sustainable expatriate management framework is redesigning performance management system for expatriates. Like I've said, you need to evaluate and monitor their performance because that's the basic reason why you brought them in. You need to be sure that they are doing what you have actually engaged them to do. Implement structured integration mechanism, like we have said. Organizations should introduce deliberate integration tools such as a body system, mentor system, cross-cultural team bordering, social communities, integrate them into social community, provide a body for them and a mentor and all that. It helps to, build a sustainable expatriate management framework. Then plan repatriation and knowledge transfer. We've talked about this. Planning repatriation should begin well before the end of the assignment. Start the conversation early. HR should ensure that expatriate document critical processes, conduct training sessions, and participate in debriefing and meetings and all. Conclusion. While expatriates play a vital role in implementing global standards and filling critical skills gap, in bringing in international best practice, the system used to manage these expatriates remain underdeveloped in many organizations in Nigeria. So it is important that we adopt a proper expatriate management process or policy to enable us to manage our expatriates appropriately. What are the key takeaways? Number one, expatriate management in HR is frequently fragmented, like I've mentioned, with emphasis on administrative tasks such as visa processing and payroll, and that is insufficient. So attention should focus on cultural integration, behavioral alignment, and long-term knowledge retention. Another takeaway is that cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence among HR professionals and even the expatriate and line managers is crucial for navigating expatriate local dynamics between the expatriate and the host, the local talents. Compliance with immigration regulations and labor regulations. Then the last one is absence of a structured performance management criteria, integration mechanism, and repatriation process undermines the effectiveness and sustainability of expatriate assignments. With these few points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince and not confuse you on expatriate management process in Nigeria. Thank you very much. We move to question and answer session.
Thank you so much. This has been excellent as always. Great learning, refreshing, insightful, and beneficial. As always, ladies and gentlemen, you can always come back to watch at a later date. Just go to Oluyemi Adeosun on YouTube. I have two questions very quickly to set the Q&A rolling. All right, like we always say, I'm asking on behalf of a friend. Now we ask those questions on behalf of somebody else. The first question, and this question speaks to the area of onboarding or even before you extend an offer of employment to the expatriate. Now, let me provide context. So let's assume the expatriate is coming to Nigeria from Europe or America. Now, there are certain laws. For example, in Nigeria, we have rules or laws in quotes against same-sex marriage. At least as of today. Today is 23rd of November 2020. So at what point do you let the expatriates know this kind of laws? What if your expatriate maybe is a man, his wife in quotes is a man or is a woman? You understand? At what point do you let them know this kind of regulations or peculiarities of Nigeria? Let me also give a second scenario. So, again, because in terms of expatriates, you can also send a Nigerian abroad.
Yes.
So imagine you have this Nigerian staff who is used to beating his children anytime they are naughty or misbehave. Then you now send them to Europe or UK or those kind of countries, and they go there, they start beating their child or children, and then the welfare services, social services come to take them from them. At what point do you provide this kind of orientation? So I wanted to use something coming to Nigeria and something going out of Nigeria.
Something. Yeah.
So that, and you
Thank
can
you.
use that to address anything around those kind of things,
Yeah.
just so that people have a practical appreciation in addition to all the beautiful things you have shared so far. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir, for that insightful question. Okay, starting with the expatriate that is coming from America or Europe, who might be a member of the LGBT community and which is illegal in Nigeria. So, as part of, from my own practice, as part of employment offer, there are basic regulations and laws that we include in our terms and conditions of employment. Of course, again, we are not supposed to discriminate against anybody's sexual orientation, but it is important to let them know what the law of the land says. So upon issuance of offer of employment, it also comes with terms and conditions of employment, which includes code of conduct. So they are encouraged to go through all these terms and conditions of employment, including code of conduct, before accepting or rejecting the offer. That is number one. Another thing you can do for them is that for those who practice same sex, really, this is an uncharted territory for me because I've never had that experience, but I know that it happens. So the employee will be the one to decide if they are accepting the offer or not. At the same time, we will make it clear that we are not discriminating, but this is the law of the country and we have to adhere to it. So I think the employee just, is the one that will make his or her decision if he's accepting the offer or not. Of course, if we have any other person that can provide clarity to this, then the second one, for employees we are sending abroad and those that are beating their children, it is important again, while we are screening for those who want to send abroad, their personality is important, their orientation is also important. And at the same time, before we send them out, of course, we will do orientation for them too, especially for those who are moving their family. We'll let them understand. So I had an experience of somebody relocating to the UK. We had to let him understand that even after the orientation and all, the guy still called to say that, oh, the children closed from school and it was 2 minutes or 5 minutes late to pick them up from school, and he got an email, and the school had to send him a mail the first and the second time saying that if he comes back late the third time to pick the children, that the child protection services, and that was like, the guy was like, is it no? I was just 5 minutes or 2 minutes late, but that's the regulation. So when that information came to our notice, we had to, re-emphasize it to that person to let him understand why it is important to go pick the children up early. So, like I said, in the course of the training, it is important to all continue to keep tabs. Even after providing orientation or providing trainings, it is important to continue to check in on them to ensure that they are complying they are compliant with the local laws and regulations. So if you have any other person that can provide, more insights to the, sexual orientation question, of course, you can do that. We have Uncle K.
Yes, thank you so much. You have actually said everything, especially regarding the same gender kind of relationship in expatriate management. You have said everything perfectly well administratively, but it's
Thank you,
another
sir.
ball game entirely if you begin to administer it. I have witnessed that before, where when you ask for information, um, they just tell you that they have a partner. They call it a partner. They won't say husband or wife. So when they
Yeah.
give you that, and you know that okay, we are same sex, and then after you have sent to them all the code of conduct and all the requirements and guidelines of the host nation or the host country, and they still choose to come, in my own experience, there's a campus, all right, where all the expatriates stay. So it's easier for them to come. They came, right? But we will just warn them that, well, this is a host country now. You cannot be seen outside together like this. Okay, so that information is really important, that perhaps if there's a campus where all the expatriates are staying, or
Yeah.
like a hostel, or like a company that has its own in-house living facility, that would be
Mm,
best.
yeah.
So they can come and then they can stay there and they have their life as they want it, but they will just be guided that going outside into the public space, they need to be really careful. Okay, so that's how, in my own experience, that was handled, and then there was no issue until the expatriate had to leave the country. I just needed to chip that in. So
Okay,
maybe
thank you
later
so
I
much
will
for
ask my
that.
own question.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Oluyemi, I hope we have been able to answer your question, sir.
I will ask my friend if she's satisfied. I asked for a
Okay.
friend. Yinka
All
sound is
right.
up.
All right, Yinka, go ahead, please.
Let me say a very big thank you. For me, this session is quite timely. My workforce plan for 2026, I'm trying to bring in someone from South Africa for a 2-year project in somewhere in the eastern part of the country. Definitely, the company does not have any policy currently, on repatriation management or whatever. So my question, maybe they will now bifurcate into two parts. Number one is that, do I say just because of that one person that I want to bring in from South Africa for this particular project for 2 years, I'm going into all the process of expatriate quota, work permit, or there is a way you want to advise me? And then, secondly, the policy, like I completely agree with you, there should be a policy in place to actually properly manage this, and so that, at least it can be established within the company system. So what do you advise? Number one, just bringing in someone from South Africa, to maybe come and spend maybe 2-year project or something. Do I go through the entire process of what is it called, expatriate quota, work permit, or there is a shortcut to it so that the person comes to do whatever he wants to? Maybe I just do work permit, let him do the 2 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yinka. I don't know if you're done with your question, but I can't hear you anymore. Okay, for that question, yes. There is no shortcuts. I'm sorry. There's no shortcuts. What you can do is that, see, the way the expatriate quota works, you might not be able to exhaust it at once. At least you know that you have a quota. But whether you are bringing in just one person, you have to go through the process. It's just what the regulation is. Except you are just bringing in somebody for maybe 3 months. You can get the temporary visa and all that. But if the person is coming for 2 years, you have to go through the process
Yes,
of
and
getting
then
your
let him go
expatriate.
away. Or I
Yes.
still need.
Yes, but you still have your quota. You still have other quotas that you might not use for now, but in the future you can use them. But you have to go through the expatriate quota. Then, because you don't have a policy in place and you are saying you are just bringing in one person, it's important that now you should have that expatriate management policy and process in place now. It could be sketchy for now, but it will make your job easier in the future when you want to bring in any other person. I don't know if Uncle K wants to has something else to add to this, because I can see it's Andres. Uncle K, welcome on board. You can help us, buffer our response to Inka.
The show is your show tonight, so I'm not going to encroach into your territory. The show is for
Okay.
you tonight. I wanted to ask another question actually.
Okay,
So
go
I don't
ahead.
know if I could go ahead.
I don't know. Hold on, before you go ahead, Inka, I don't
Okay.
know if I've been able to answer your question. Okay, we can't hear you. Uncle K, you can go ahead, please.
Okay, but I think you have actually said it. It shouldn't try and cut corners. It should just go into it and then set the ground rules for the one expatriate that is coming. In future, they may need more than one. Then the process and the ground rules would already be set for him, and he can only improve on what he has done at the moment, and then will not be able to reinvent the wheel over again. He can only be improving on it and going forward. You have actually said it perfectly. So,
Thank you.
part of what you also said was that expatriates are brought in to fill in some gaps, skill set gaps that exist and the rest. So I want to ask a question. What happens in a case where people bring in expatriates for skills that are vast abundant in the country? For instance, human resources. Sometimes organizations bring in expatriates to come fill position of human resources, even position of chef, and some other things like that. So is there a legislation in Nigeria against such? That's number one. And what is the right thing to do in that case? Number two,
Okay.
when expatriates come in like that, and should there be a time limit for them to transfer knowledge of that skill that is not readily available that they have to locals that can also learn from them, such that maybe is there any rules that they cannot stay beyond a certain number of years where they would have transferred those skills to um, maybe next person or someone who's also interested, so that we do not just have expatriates all year round for donkey years, 20 years, that is coming in as expatriates in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for your question, sir. Okay, the first question saying that what do you do when you have local talent that can fill the position and then people still bring in expatriates, or what does the law says? So what the regulation says is that you're only bringing expats for roles or positions where you do not have local talent that can fill in such position. So now for people that bring in expatriates such as chefs, chef can still be understandable because I work in hospitality, and then there are some, dishes that you want to create that our local talent might not have knowledge or understanding of how the food is being made. For example, you're preparing a Chinese cuisine or something. So that one is justifiable for you to bring in chefs. But for positions like human resource, sometimes people bring in experts for positions that are not on the quota. So, for example, you see somebody who is a human resource person, and then the green card the person is carrying is mechanical engineer. If we are going to be honest with ourselves, people do it a lot, but it is not in line with the law, and it is not good to do that. So, for positions like human resource, it is possible that the organization is a multinational. I'm sure they will still have their own local human resource person, possibly for culture purpose. There are some organizations that have culture and they want to replicate the culture across all their subsidiaries. So maybe they have subsidiaries in 6 or 5 countries and they want to, replicate such culture. They can bring their own human resource person. That is not, out of place, to coach and to train. Then for the time frame for knowledge transfer, it depends on the role. For example, now if I'm bringing in a chef to teach the local chefs on how to curate a cuisine, I don't think I should use 1 year for that. You understand? So depending on the role, depending on the skill or the knowledge that you want to be transferred, and peculiar to your own organization. So, like I said, if you have an expatriate management policy, then you can say that, oh, for this role, the expatriate is coming in for just a year and then it goes back. But sometimes there are unforeseen circumstances. Maybe if you engage the person for 1 year and is unable to, complete his tasks, or the people that are supposed to learn from him are not well skilled enough to carry on their own, you can extend. So you can just be flexible with that. I don't think there is a standard rule for a period of knowledge transfer. I hope I've been able to, answer your question. Uncle K, I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Oh, yes, you have done justice to the question very well. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. I'm glad. Thank you very much. Do we have any question in the chat?
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think we should be wrapping up by now so that we can continue to develop our own capacity to become expatriates so that we can earn dollars. So I see Priya's hand up before Priya speaks so that I don't lose my train of thought. One thing I would suggest is that, especially when you are recruiting for expatriates and you advertise, you may want to put like a footnote and say, for example, if you're hiring for the role is going to be situated in Nigeria, you may want to put a footnote clearly and say that Nigerian local laws will apply to this contract. Nigerian labor laws, Nigerian national, so that in case there's any development or evolution, it won't look like you didn't tell them. You have already stated that the Nigerian labor law, Nigerian national laws, so because that may not be within the control of the organization, you understand, so that at every point in time, they are kept abreast of the laws and they can cope. Of course, you two must make every reasonable effort to let them know of some of the laws that may affect them. So, for example, when we bring people from overseas to Nigeria, we typically tell them about malaria. Yes, malaria deals with us Nigerians, but somehow, forgive my French, we have Odeshi at a certain level. Or some of us, we have experienced malaria so many times that somehow we can cope. Some people don't know that malaria actually kills.
Yeah.
Especially if you are coming from Europe or something.
Or US.
Or US. And in US, because of their weather, some have never experienced malaria before. So when they come to Nigeria and they have malaria, they may not even know on time. And by the time they know, it may be too late. In fact, sometimes when they come to Nigeria like that, you'll be giving them like anti-malaria drugs.
Medicine. Yeah.
Even when they don't have yet, just to prepare them and fortify them
every 3 months,
and so on and so forth. So again, once you know that there are certain cultural nuances, let them know that this is and as much as possible, let them even know if possible before offer. So it's not like they've resigned from their comfort zone and they are coming here. Again, like Tosin rightly and aptly mentioned, even before they arrive here, if you can connect them with their local community.
Yeah.
For example, if the person is Indian, the Indians in Nigeria, those ones will quickly tell them that, the intent is to minimize, or eliminate, or reduce culture shock. They can tell you that, in this place, this food is available, this food is not available, this drug is available, this other drug is not available. Bring it along when you are coming. We have Indian school here. We have our temple here. We're able to worship this way. And they can say, in this place, so if you come to Lagos, there's a place called the Korodu. From time to time, they do Oro Festival. Those kind of things. Yes, you will do a good job, but, because you are a Nigerian in Nigeria, you may not appreciate some there will be things to just take for granted unintentionally. But another national of theirs here, who will probably have experienced those culture shock very early, will be able to probably identify and help support. They also provide information with respect to, if you want to bring your wife or husband, if you want to bring your children, and so on and so forth. For example, in Lagos, a lot of Indians, you are just using Indians like case study, stay around the Ilupeju axis. If you enter Ilupeju, you almost think you are in Mumbai. In fact, don't quote me, but I'm aware they even have Indians.
We are aware, yes.
They even have supermarket. Of course, they won't chase you. But they also have schools. They won't chase you. Maybe your pocket will chase you when you get there, if you want to, and so on and so forth. So those kind of things are very, very good. And again, do your due diligence with respect to recruitment. It's not easy to lay off any staff, but it's very expensive to lay off an expatriate staff. Because if you have to lay off, you now discover that the person is a pure recruitment error. You will still pay for their flight back home. So, yes. So the overall cost is massive. I just thought to quickly put that down. Then with respect to one of the questions that maybe my brother asked, maybe they just want to get one expatriate, just one, maybe for 1 or 2 years. Again, this is just an alternative you may consider. Can the person come instead of as an employee? Can they come like a business? Can they come like a consultant? Of course, the kind of visa they will require may be different. So in that context, they won't be an employee. They can come like a consultant, even though it may be maybe 3 months or 6 months or something. They can now be renewing, or they will travel back and then come back. You may also talk to your immigration consultants and lawyers respectfully. Of course, that is not to say you cannot do direct. So we'll quickly take Priye, we'll take Chinyere, and then we'll take closing comments by Tosin so that we can go and sleep. Priye first, and then Chinyere.
All right, thank you very much for the insightful session. Okay, my question is, in a situation whereby you're working with a firm that probably your company is being associated with management of resource in terms of expatriate. So how do you do it in a situation whereby you're trying to onboard a new expatriate? And in terms of the medical condition of that person, you don't have, I don't know, but probably the person just some of the documents you've shared in terms of, do you have any ailments, in terms of your physical or your medical history, and the person is saying no. And in the course of you onboarding the person over to the host country, you find out that the person have one ailment or the other that is not that is affecting the productivity. So what can you do to guide against such exposure? What do you advise that when you have expatriates coming in terms of in a fixed term kind of employment, do you make it mandatory that that when they come to the host country, they do the normal medical checks to ascertain their fitness for work? Or what do you advise so you don't expose your clients to unnecessary financial burden? So that's just my
Okay. So thank you very much for
question.
that question. I'll provide two answers, and then maybe other people can contribute. From experience, what you can do is to subject the person to a medical assessment, which is not out of place. If you hire multinational that have organizations in that host country, in that person's home country, then you can schedule the person for a medical examination in an institution that you approve of in their host country. So before coming in, he or she already undergo a medical examination, which you can do. Another thing you can do is that really, honestly, if you have not subject the person to a medical evaluation before leaving their host country, I don't think you can ascertain 100% the person's medical or health condition until they arrive in the host country. So you can probably have a clause in your contract to say that if they breach any of this, in your agreement, you can state that they should declare their, medical condition, and if they fail to declare or breach any of these conditions, they will be responsible for their return or whatever. You can have a clause, but I think the more senior professionals should provide insight more to that question. Dr. Luyemi or Uncle K, if you don't mind. Priya, I hope I've been able to provide answers. If we don't,
Yes, you did. You did.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chinyere, can we have your question, Chinyere?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you,
Good evening.
everyone. Thank you for the section. I have one comes like a question. One,
Okay.
I need a clarity.
Okay.
Is there any time frame for an expatriate who came in, as in after some months or years, the wife came for a visit? Is there any time frame for that visit to elapse? Then the wife can go back. Do we have any time frame,
Okay.
or they
Yes,
can stay as long as they want?
No, for the wife that is coming in for a visit, it's a temporary visa. It depends on the type of visa that the wife gets. But most of the time, it's usually the temporary visa, which is for 3 months. So upon the expiration of the visa, even if you want to renew, the wife still has to go back first, and then you renew, then she comes back again.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
You're
The
welcome.
second one is, please, how do we cope with an expatriate? Because it's my first time. I came in, I met an expatriate, an Indian guy precisely. He don't really most things he wants you to do. It's something that contravenes our our labor law, and he wants you to do that, knowing that they've already told you the person you report to is the GM, who is the expatriate. You don't have any connection to discuss with the ED or CEO. It's just the GM. And a lot of things is like you're struggling to get things done. You're struggling to get the buy. Even it's okay, push this to the board of directors. Let's see if they disapprove or approve of it. There and then he will counter it. Just like everything. He will tell you you're going to pay outside payroll. Your payroll is high, get this, everything he wants you to do. He wants you to move somebody, will say, move this person immediately, give this, it's just like, how do we manage such expatriates?
Okay. I've been in your shoes. That's why I'm smiling. I've been in your shoes in the past. So you remember I talked about emotional intelligence. It is very important to understand how to deal with expatriates, especially for some people from specific countries. We have them from different countries. We have the Indians, we have the Chinese, we have the Lebanese, we have the Italians. So it is important that you learn how to manage them. Number one thing that I have learned to do is to understand their need. What do they want? Okay, this is what you want. And all the things you want is against the labor law. I will find a way to let him understand what the law says about some situations. For some of the things that he wants that are not illegal or that are not against the law, of course, you can find a way to align it with your own HR process and practice. But for those ones that are against the law, you need to find a way to communicate to this person to let him understand the repercussion, especially if you're a licensed HR professional in Nigeria. If you are licensed, you can't do things that are against the law. So if this person is asking you to go against the law, as a licensed person, you let him understand. If he refuses to understand, honestly, you can walk away. And that was what I did when I was faced with such a situation. You can walk away. But most importantly, let him understand. Find a way of, making them understand what the law says about such things and the consequences of doing such. Let him find a way to make him understand, or find somebody who can, communicate better to him. But if it still falls on deaf ears, then honestly, you can just walk away. I hope I've been able to provide answer to your question.
Thank you.
you so much. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how we typically end this here, but this time we'll use a special style. We are going to pretend we are all expatriates. Okay. So please, let's unmute and appreciate our facilitator. Let's also use all the emojis, emoticons we can use to show our love. All right.
So, me, I'm speaking in Jabu as an expatriate. Thank you.
Thank
Also,
you very
also,
much.
also
Thank
being
you for your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, you are about the expatriate, please.
Okay, I'm using the Ibadan style now. Still gone, still. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay. Iléeṣẹ́ yóò ní jóná o.
Amio. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you for having
Thank
me
you.
once again, sir.
We enjoyed this session, as always. Cheers. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.